Go get somebody to bring them in.
They are coming now. I think we're going to have to move in a little closer. There's more people coming. Would everybody who's in the colonoscopy suite, I know that's a favorite place.
I've seen you for a long time. Better than you've been hiding? I know where I can. Too busy not to.
Does someone have a defibrillator for Bellamy after that whistle? Ladies and gentlemen, if I can have your attention, please. For many of you who know me, I don't normally have notes, but there's a few people I have to thank, and so I want to make sure I do that. My name is John Danson. I'm the Business Development VP of the Cleveland Clinic, and we're absolutely thrilled to host this Maddy and Phil evening. I have to tell you, a number of people said, you know, you just started getting invitations 3 weeks ago, and how did you ever expect to have a successful evening in 3 weeks? We were going to have this date 3 or 4 weeks from now. Well, when you're planning with Olympians and World Cup ski racers traveling around the world with injuries, snow conditions, training schedules, race schedules changing, we had them both here tonight. And as we're here tonight, Phil is here and Maddy will be with us electronically from Finland. I have to tell you, we have a very small committee who put this together. And working with Kim and Steve and Carolyn Grant, Irwin and Brown, I have to tell you, you can see why these kids are so accomplished, so special, so passionate, so eager, so giving, and so mature. Working with this family has been absolutely incredible, and I have to tell you, the heavy lifting they did on this was absolutely amazing. I'm surprised they're not wearing t-shirts today, that they survived working with me for 3 weeks. I just wanted to thank a few people. We couldn't have this without the support of many people. One of the people that supported us the most was the Cleveland Clinic. When I went to Mike Kessel, the president and CEO, and Mike is here tonight, and asked him for his support, he said, I'll only give the support on one basis. That we contribute, we make this thing happen, that hosting here with the food and the drink and all that, and that every penny raised goes to the kids and not to us, and that I thought was a pretty good deal. When we also asked Alpine Canada and Alpine Ontario for their support, it was unquestionable. Alpine Canada was phenomenal. Chris Clark from the board was here for a while and had to leave. James Lazar is here, and James has been exceptional. Craigley Ski Club, where the kids, ski out of, between, Dave Campbell, Jeff Cordemuch, the board of directors at Craigley is just absolutely sensational. Rosie with Mario and Head with Brooker, Skis and Bike with Paul Montgomery, TSN from Mike Marzi, and Molson's from Mary Boyton have been absolutely fantastic. Just to let you know, to say thank you, we're going to do a draw for a Sony Bravia TV at 8:30, and that's the time that the silent auction will be closed. And you all got tickets, and you're all eligible. That's the second prize. The first prize will be a complimentary colonoscopy. And to thank you, and if I could be serious for a moment, to give our thanks, there'll be a sedative. The people from the national team, Brooker was going to be here, and of course he was a contributor and couldn't make it. Lisa Savajarvi is here, Stem's here, Brad King will be here, and most of you are way too young to know Graham Hess, who was there was in the 40s. I'd like to introduce our guest speaker. I've got notes upon notes upon notes. Brian Williams. Let me tell you about Brian Williams. First of all, Brian and I have been friends for a number of years, and it all started with his daughter Jen dating my late brother Ken's son Jeremy. And now, and they're both here tonight, and there they are over there. And I'm hoping with your support we can move this from my friendship with Brian to be a family relation. And Jeremy, we're proposal. This would be a great time. Anyways, you're all invited to the wedding. It's okay, Brian's paid. Brian Williams started his career in 1967. It seems forever because he's, Brian Williams is Mr. Olympics. He's Mr. Athletics. He's Mr. Culture, Order of Canada. He's a giver. Excuse me, I feel like I'm introducing myself. He started with Chum, then CFRB, CBLT, CBC, and was there until 2006. And of course, you all know he's with CTV and TSN. 30 years CFL, Rogers Cup, NHL, Major League Baseball, PGA Tour, World Tour, Canadian figure skating, World Cup skiing, Formula One racing, LRL, of course the Breeders' Cup, Pan Am, and Commonwealth Games. 6 times Gemini winner, 2 times Foster Hewitt Award.
8.
Pardon me? Excuse me, I'm giving a speech. 4 Geminis, get him. Anyways, 8 Geminis, but that's unbelievable. But I have to tell you something. On the board of directors, on the board of foundations of North York Hospital, Ronald McDonald House, Tim Hortons, Special Olympics, Mr. Brian Williams.
Thank you, Peter. I get the dance brothers mixed up.
Don't worry about it.
I will tell you, we came out of a function at Tim's house, and John is shy like Tim. And Tim said to my wife, "Who's going to speak first at the wedding? John, Brian, or myself?" And she said, "None of you." After that introduction, I feel a bit like one of Elizabeth Taylor's 8 husbands. I know what to do, but I'm not sure how to make it interesting. It is a pleasure to be here tonight. This is the most persistent human being I've ever met. I think Wednesday I was in Winnipeg, Thursday in Shiloh, Friday in Vancouver, Saturday in Victoria, flew in last night. I'm heading back to Regina. I said, I can't do this on November the 5th. It's after the Olympics and getting ready for the Grey Cup. And after about the 30th phone call, he said, "Do you believe in free speech?" And I said, "Well, that's a stupid question because I live in Canada." He said, "Good. November the 5th, the 30th floor at 6 o'clock. But, I must tell you, my wife Geraldine is here, and Jennifer, our youngest of 3 daughters. I'll tell you a very quick story before I get into the skiing, that I realized I was traveling too much when I came home from the 2004 Summer Olympics in Athens, and was met at the airport by Geraldine, Jennifer, Amy. The oldest daughter was not there. And I'd been away for about 6 weeks, and finally Jennifer blurted out to me, Dad, we've got new pets." And I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "You've been away a long time, we have new pets." I said, "We have Lucy the Fox Terrier, beautiful little dog. We have that mangy alley cat your mother loves and rescued that lives in the wash or in the laundry room that bites everyone but her." And she said, "No, we have pets." I said, "What do you have?" This true story. And she said, "We have hamsters." I said, "You're kidding, we got rats in the house." And she said, "No, these are really great. They're not rats, they're wonderful pets." And I said, "You've got more than one?" And she said, "We do, Dad." And I said, "How many?" And she said, 2. And I said, "Obviously, a male and a female." And she said, "No, Dad, we have 2 males." And I can remember looking at Geraldine, who's standing over here, and saying, "Why do you need 2 males?" And with a straight face, she said, "Just in case one of them travels most of the time." All right, let me get serious. Vancouver 2010, I've done 14 Olympics, changed our country like no other event. We're no longer apologizing for winning. We are standing up. We're no longer afraid to beat our chests. Brian will tell you, Americans used to say to us, why don't you stand up and express your confidence like we in the United States or the Australians? But ultimately, the success of Vancouver or any Olympics is about the athletes. John Furlong did a great job. Seb Coe did a wonderful job in London. But without the 14 gold medals in Vancouver, the Games would not have been the tremendous success they were. In London, 2 weeks before the Games, there was no buzz. But once those British athletes started racking up the gold medals, not only London, but the whole world became involved and excited. And after Vancouver, we now know in this country what the Australians and the Americans have known for decades, and that is, you know, it feels pretty good to win. And there's nothing wrong with winning, and there's no need to apologize for it. However, there is a problem when it comes to achieving success. To win costs money. And believe me, the government is not the answer. I can remember doing a Formula One race with Jackie Stewart. I mean, you think skiers run in high crowds? This was years ago. I'd never done Formula One, and CBC said, we have the rights. And I said, I don't even like Formula One. And they said, you'll do it because you'll do the research. So I go to Montreal, and Stewart arrives with a helicopter provided by Goodyear, the limousine by the Ford Motor Company. He walks in, Brian, how are you? And I said, I'm fine, Jackie, and nice to meet you. And he said, I have one rule. And I said, what is it? He said, no one's allowed in the booth during the telecast. So we go to air on Sunday afternoon, an audience of 5 or 6 million. We go to commercial, and I turn around, and I see a familiar-looking woman and a man at the back of the booth. And I said, excuse me, no one's allowed in here, we're on the air. And he says, oh, Brian, do you know Princess Caroline of Monaco? And I said, true story. The next year he had 2 bums, it was Hall & Oates. I once said to Jackie Stewart, I said, Jackie, how do we get Canadian success or achieve Canadian success? We saw what ultimately happened with Jacques Villeneuve, many other drivers. He said the answer is simple. The private sector has to step up and back the athletes. This is what happens in the UK, it's what happens in the United States, and it's what happens in Australia. So this is why what John is doing, and what each and every one of you, in fact, are doing by being here tonight, is stepping up and supporting the athletes, and I applaud each and every one of you. Now, I have a special bond with the skiers. The late Ted Reynolds, who did figure skating, remember Lisa used to whine and complain at the Olympics, he'd say, the skiers aren't winning, and Williams is spending all of prime time talking about the GD skiers. Well, I happen to love skiing for 25 years, first with Dave Irwin, and then with the great Ken Reed. I covered every World Cup race involving Canadians for about 25 years. In fact, Geraldine will tell you there was a period when I spent more time in the winter in Europe with Ken than I did with my wife. In fact, I remember calling her once from Val d'Isère, France. It was 1983. Brooker had just lost by 100th of a second to Franz Heinzer from Switzerland. And I phoned her up and I said, hi, I'm over here. Do you remember Nancy Green, my good friend? Well, Maria Goischel, who Nancy beat in the Olympics in 1968, has a restaurant here, and Ken and I are going out tonight for French wine. And she says, so? Are you finished? And I said, yeah. She said, goodbye. Years later, I'll never forget, it's an absolute true story. We're sitting at a party, and I guess we're talking about things that had happened, and she said, well, how about Brian? I'm with 3 girls. I haven't talked to anyone over the age of 6. I've got glue under my fingernails. I'm going gaga, gaga, gaga. And Good Time Charlie calls up and talks to me about a French restaurant in the French Alps and can't understand why I'm not responding. But I did spend a lot of time with Ken. This evening is all about 2 young athletes I'll introduce in just a minute. I'd first of all like to recognize 2 great ambassadors for our country. I get a little emotional because I visited this gentleman at Sunnybrook. He had tubes coming out of holes in the body that I didn't know existed. No Canadian male has ever won for a nation of downhillers No Canadian males ever won an Olympic gold. There have been 2 bronze, one by Steve Podborski in 1980 in Lake Placid, and the other by Eddie Podovinski in 1994 in Lillehammer, Norway. So it's the day of the downhill. And remember all the delays, delay after delay. They finally are running the race. It's 1998, Nagano, Japan. And I believe, Brian, you can correct me, in something like start position number 28. It was finally sunny. The sun had melted the course, it then froze. There were ruts, it was icy. He's coming down out of the top seat. And with about a couple hundred meters to go, I could have won the race from there. I'm not discouraging Brian, this is putting it in perspective. His lead, I'm telling you, his lead, he had skied such a magnificent run. He was so far ahead that were the conditions perfect, someone like me could win it. But the conditions were not perfect. And through no fault of his own, he hit a rut about this deep as he was coming over the top into the finish area. I mean, he had decimated the field. He fell, it was over. And that night, he came into the studio, we did a big, I expected he would be making excuses, and there were no excuses. He simply apologized, and I said, well, what about the bad course? He said, the bad course is no excuse, I should have won. He had every excuse in the world. Ken and I were doing Kitzbühel. In those days, the netting had no plastic over it, right? And Brian caught the tip of the ski at about 80 miles an hour in the netting. Later, I would go to visit him at Sunnybrook. I didn't think he would walk. He not only walked, he came back to regain the podium. I believe it was Crom, Montana, was it not, that Ken and I were there when you came back? And went on the podium in Crom, Montana, Switzerland. An outstanding television commentator. I worked with him in Turin at CBC. We worked together in Vancouver. I covered his sister Karen as well, who's not here tonight, my good friend Brian Stone. I used to love doing the World Cup telecast because I would say, here's the young lady from Milford Bay, Ontario. Bracebridge, by the way, is a suburb of Milford Bay. And I would get memory of her dad's dentist up there. I'd get all these...
Still practicing.
Still practicing, all right. And she competed, and I don't want to date her, but talking about snow delays, 1984, in Sarajevo, do you remember the snow up to our chests at Beliznica? I think it took like 8 days to get a ski race underway. She won a Super G. I was there, I did the play-by-play in Furano, Japan. 7 years on the national team, just a classy representative of our country, Lisa Savager. I forgot, that's right. She said, you visited me at Sunnybrook too.
There was no Cleveland Clinic then.
That's right.
We have a relationship with Sonny, but it's okay.
He's still thrilled because both Barack Obama and Mitt Romney talked about the Cleveland Clinic. So. He's upset though, they never mentioned John. All right, I'll keep it short. The reason we're here tonight is to help 2 young skiers. When John called me, I said, you gotta be kidding. So I called Ken, Ken Reid should be Prime Minister. Both the Liberals and the Conservatives tried to get him to run. Ken Reid's French is so good that when he's on radio in Quebec, they don't believe it's an Anglophone. And I'll tell you a very quick story. 1983, we're doing a race in Val d'Isère, France. The Argonauts had just won the Grey Cup. I'd flown over there, and the great Jean-Claude Keely. Calgary has won 1988. Albertville wants to bid for 1992. So they introduced Phil and Steve Mayer. Remember the Mayer brothers? And they say, we're from the States, we just say mercy. So they started, mercy. They started talking about the 1988 Olympics in Calgary. And Jean-Claude Keely said, hang on, we have a member from Calgary here, one of the great skiers in the world, Mr. Ken Reid. Ken got up and began to speak in French. And after about 20 seconds, everybody was standing. These are the toughest riders in France. And Jean-Claude Keely said, we're applauding a Canadian that speaks better French than we do. So Ken turned this team around. Unfortunately, he was not there in Vancouver, and I will not go down that road. But we have 2 very special guests here tonight. Let me begin with Maddy Irwin. met her dad, and he said, boy, you've done your homework. She was new to the Canadian Alpine team in 2011. She's got unbelievable versatility. I'm looking
It's
at
Winnipeg.
I was born in Winnipeg. She has great versatility. She had 9 NORAM podiums in Super Combined, Super G, GS, and Slalom. She was also 10th in a GS at the 2011 FIS Junior World Championships in Switzerland. I like the family. Her twin brother, Keegan, plays rugby. Mackenzie's on the ski team at St. Lawrence University, which is a pretty good university in upstate New York, and her brother Braden plays hockey in the Leafs farm system. Now, Maddy is already in Europe, the Canadian skiers. It's not an easy life. They're like nomads. The French, the Germans, the Austrians, they go home after a Sunday race. The Canadians and the Americans have to stay there, right, Lisa, Brian, for 2-3 months at a time. I mean, they play a lot of hockey on Mondays and Tuesdays, but it's not easy. Maddy is already in Finland, I believe, John, so if we can roll the videotape, here is a greeting from Maddy.
Regrettably, I'm unable to be there with you today because I'm in Europe gearing up for my first World Cup appearance this season in Levi, Finland. First and foremost, I would like to thank you for your interest and support in our careers. Thanks to those who couldn't attend but still donated, and thanks to the companies and individuals who supported our silent auction. There's some really great stuff in there, so you guys should all check it out. I'm really excited for the approaching competitive season. It's not a single day, a single race, nor a single effort. Excellence is a lifestyle. It's a conscious choice that you have to make throughout your day. I'm confident in my preparation thus far and can't wait to tear into the 2012-2013 races in preparation for the 2014 Winter Olympic Games in Sochi and beyond. Please join me on my journey, and please have some fun, eat some food, and enjoy yourselves here at the Cleveland Clinic.
Mr. Danson, if you know anything about television production, that's not a cheap production. Who in the heck did you con into that?
Somebody from Bell.
We love Bell. Yes, we do. Maddy's not here tonight, but her mom and dad, Brent and Carol, are here. Her dad came up and I saw Irwin. I said, are you related to Dave? Because I work with a great Dave Irwin for here. But would you just come up and wave to everybody, please, Mr. and Mrs. Irwin? They're right here in the middle. This gentleman has already been mentioned tonight, but I have known Mario Gertan probably for 35 years, and one time we had Alberto Tomba, you remember? Mario's a Brazil. So he calls me, he says, Brian, we have Alberto Tomba coming to the National Golf Club up in Woodbridge. It's a big luncheon. People have paid huge money. Will you come and MC it because you know Alberto and he knows you. So remember, we have the event. And we go downstairs at the National for a private lunch. I'll never forget this. And Mario's got all this great wine out. So trying to be cool, I stand up and I say, Alberto, would you like red wine or white wine? Everybody's answering. He looked at me with such disgust, he says, Brian, please. A real Italian man only drinks a white wine when the red wine is all gone. That's the first person that made fun of me drinking white wine. The second was Don Cherry. By the way, Todd Bricker is not here tonight, but let me be serious for a minute. I'm not sure you understand the risks, if you've never been to a World Cup race, that these athletes put themselves in harm's way. It was very dangerous. Don used to kid me about skiing. He says, they wear those skin-tight little clothes, they wear helmets, and their face bands. I remember his accident and Todd Brooker's, so when I played them for Don, he's been an avid ski racing fan ever since. Let me introduce now a young gentleman who's known as Downtown Philly Brown. Born in Toronto, is a product of the Craigleith Ski Club in Collingwood. Of course, you know, we have great mountains in Ontario. I mean, I used to tell Reed, you Western skiers can't touch Stemmel, Podborski, Brooker, Irwin, and Thunder Bay, and Mr. Brown here. So Ontario produces the great skiers. What a resume. Earlier this year, at a NORAM GS in Stowe, Vermont, he was the champion. He was second in a Super G NORAM last year at my old hometown of Panorama, British Columbia, which is just outside Invermere, where my dad was a country doctor in the 1950s. And he was third in the combined at the 2011 World Junior Ski Championships in the aforementioned Crom, Montana, Switzerland. It is a real pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to bring up Phil Brown. Come on up.
Guys, I don't know how I'm going to back up Brian's speech. But I first need to start off by thanking everybody for coming out tonight. Seeing everybody here, supporting Maddy and I, it's really incredible, and it means the world to us. We can't thank you enough. John already mentioned a few names, but I'd like to also go ahead and thank a few people. First of all, Brian, for coming out here tonight. We know that Brian's always been a huge supporter of ski racing as well as all other Olympic sports and amateur sport for that matter, and we can't thank him enough for being such a great ambassador. I'd also like to thank John Danson and the Cleveland Clinic for hosting us tonight. As well as Mike Kessel, who's the president and CEO of the Cleveland Clinic, so thank you very much. John volunteered a lot of his time out of his busy schedule to help Maddy and I, and when I came to him in the spring and asked for help, he was more than willing, and I can't thank you enough for that, John. We really appreciate it. Well, I'd also like to thank my dad and my mom, Steve and Kim Brown, and as well as the Irwin family, Carol and Grant. They've been supporting us since Maddy and I were 8 years old when we started ski racing. And now we're here, and they were working around the clock while Maddy and I were getting ready, training for the season and the upcoming races. So if it wasn't for them, none of you guys would be here, and it wouldn't have been such a great event. Lastly, I'd like to thank again everybody who generously donated to the silent auction, which is just in the other room. We've got some really great items over there, and I hope that you can all get a chance to check it out. On that note, I'm sure some of you saw some of the signs, but Maddy and I decided that all of the proceeds from that silent auction are going to be donated towards the Nick Zorchich Foundation. Nick was obviously a really good friend of ours, of Maddy and myself, and he was such a great influence on Maddy and I growing up at Craigleith, looking up to him on the national ski team. And we couldn't think of a better way to donate to that foundation. That money in the foundation is going to be going towards safety initiatives in ski racing, as well as supporting young athletes in Ontario and eventually across Canada. So, yeah, please check out the silent auction and Maddy and I are pursuing a dream. It's a pretty big dream, and we're trying to get to the Olympics in 2014 and hopefully in the future. We know that it's going to be a pretty long process, and it's going to take a lot of effort, but we're both fully committed to do that. And now with your support, I mean, we're just 21 years old, we're just starting our journey, and with you guys here tonight, we're all in it together, and we'd like to invite you to share that journey with us, and you can come along for the ride and support us, and that would be great. Ski racing is a pretty unbelievable sport, if you ask me. It's pretty grueling. It's freezing cold most of the time. We spend almost every day squeezing our feet into these little pieces of plastic that most would call ski boots. And they're incredibly uncomfortable, as I'm sure some of you have experienced in your life at one point or another. And it's all about training, more training every day, every week, year after year. Whether it's summer or winter, you'll find Maddy and I in the gym on the slopes trying to get ready for our next race. But I must say that the uniqueness and the inconsistencies of this sport are what make it so incredible. No day on the ski hill is ever the same as the day before. The weather is constantly changing. Snow conditions are always changing, as Brian mentioned with Stemmel's race in the Olympics. Courses are never the same, and really no turn is ever the same as the turn before. The timing and the precision that's required to make a ski turn and ultimately to perform a great run, it boggles my mind to this day. I sit down and watch TV, and I watch guys who are winning the races, and I still can't believe how many things have to go right for somebody to win a race. It's quite incredible. But all that being said, the one constant that ski racers can rely on is the feeling that you get when you stand in the start gate before a big race. At that moment, you're by yourself. It's you against the clock. Nobody's really there to help you anymore. You know that for the next 1 to 2 minutes, you're going to be charging down the mountain as fast as you can to try to be better and to try to beat the other competitors on that given day. You feel nervous and exhilarated all at the same time. All you can do at that moment is really just try to focus on the things that are within your control, which I must say from experience, that's probably the hardest thing to do in all of ski racing. And we work on that daily, but that's another story. But when you're standing there and the 10-second beep sounds and then the 5-second countdown begins before you have to charge out of the gate, the adrenaline rush is simply indescribable. You charge out of the course, the speed, the bumps, the air time. You see the finish line in your sight, you reach for the finish line, you turn around and look up at your time. The whole experience is what it's really all about. And the rush, it's literally addicting, and I think it's the best feeling in the world, and that's why most of us do it. That's what gets us back on the chairlift to go back for another run or go for another training day. And that's why we do it day in, day out. That's really all I have to say. Thanks a lot, everybody, for coming out again. It's been a wonderful evening.
You know, as I heard Philip speak, no ums, no ahs, no, you know. And you do, Lisa, Brian, Ken, Steve, Dave, the late Dave Murray, Todd, proud. I've always said to my family that the ski racers are among the most intelligent and articulate athletes that represent this country. They learn foreign languages when they're in Europe, and you sure proved that here today. Kim and Steve, would you wave? Your mom and dad, you must be very, very proud. All right, couple of quick questions. What, I've finished. I'm just kidding, I've been waiting to do that. Couple of quick questions. Can you talk about the preparation? Because we talk about fundraisers. It's the proper preparation, the proper training. People don't realize that and just how expensive it is and what goes into it, Phil.
Yeah, well...
He did it on purpose. He said to me, I did that for my mom when she was sitting on it.
No, we have to, in the summertime, I don't even get to come home to Toronto. This is really my home that I am born and raised in, and I love this city, but now with our new training center out in Calgary, they're developing a brand new gym there. We spend all the summer, and we have to move out there, rent an apartment or wherever, bunk in with your teammates who live there. We spend hours in the gym daily, and then through the summer we're going skiing in August, and then again in October, and then once November comes around we start really getting into gear and starting to ski race.
Where do you go, where do you begin in November?
Well, tomorrow morning I have to wake up really early and get on a flight to go to Calgary. And then I'll be skiing out there in the mountains for about a week and a half until we head to Colorado, and then that's when the real racing season starts. And then from there we're sort of jumping around, following the circuit in Colorado, and then back up to Canada for a while until Christmas.
You're not skiing against Lindsey Vonn, so this is good. I'm just kidding.
I bet some of the other guys on the team were a little bit scared though.
Ladies and gentlemen, they do represent our country with dignity and class. Great examples as is Phil. Thank you all.
Ladies and gentlemen, we want to say thank you to Brian. This is the last year the team at the end of the season came together, and this is a signed jersey for Brian, for all the people on the national team. Also, a friend of Ski Racing Ontario is John Wordsworth, and he always is very giving money, and he's donated 2 TVs. And at 8:30, we're going to do a draw for a TV, and you each have it. And we'd like to give a TV, probably a Sony TV, to Brian Williams. See if he can carry it out. Okay, for saying thank you.
My wife said it's a good thing we came. Listen, is my name on here or just a second?
Yes, that's it.
No, because I would like to give it back to the clinic or for auction, or you hang it up and frame it, all right? Because it would mean more to young people coming here. My name is not on it, so you can do whatever you want.
Who can be 250? We got 200.
Hold it. All right.
I'm the goddamn auctioneer! We don't have a mic. Who's got the mic?
Ladies and gentlemen, the goddamn auctioneer. Go ahead, you auction it here, thank you.
Okay, we got 350 here, we'll go to 400, we got 350 over here, we got 400 over here. Alan's got more money than all of you in the room at $400, let's get price going. $600 at 500, $500, we got 550, we got 550, we got 500, who gives 500, we got 500, over here we got 500, we got 500, we got 500 going once, anyone else? Signed by this, touched by Brian Williams. Beautiful. Jason just bid 600, didn't realize he bid 500, he's bidding against himself. And he is an accountant, can you imagine? The money here going to Nick Zorchik's foundation, just like the silent auction over there that we want all of you to get involved in. We got 500, who'll give us $600? Who'll give us $600? We got 600 over here by Mr. Allen, 600 over here. Come on, Jason, just give us 750, call, we got that thing over. $750, let's give him a chair. $1,000. I'm going to invite him to my bar mitzvah. This is unbelievable. Thank you very much. Go over there and bid for Nick. Everybody go and give Jason a hug. Eat some great food over there. And thank you very much. Thank you.